Women Up Radio, designed to facilitate women's empowerment, improve your career, develop your talents, incorporate your passions, achieve fulfillment and success.
Hello, this is Women Up Radio, supporting Empower Women, and today we're talking about authenticity. I'm joined in the studio by Ceri Wheeldon, who's the founder of the website Fab After 50. Welcome to the programme. So, hello Ceri, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Anna. Thank you so much for having me join you today.
So, Ceri, tell me about your company. What is Fab After 50?
Well, basically, Fab After 50 is an online magazine, website and community for women sort of approaching 50 or over 50 who really want to make the second half of their lives the best half of their lives. And so we cover everything from, careers, health, fitness, general lifestyle issues, style, dating, empty nesting, you name it. But it really is there to inspire and inform women.
Oh, it sounds wonderful. Excellent. Have a look. You'll find the link on the website so you can see it next to the radio broadcast. Okay, Ceri, can I start by asking you some questions about your views on authenticity? Basically, this program's all about women's empowerment.
Yep.
And I know both you and I are very strong supporters of that, and particularly for the older women. However, recently I've heard a lot that seems to impact on our authenticity and not necessarily in the right way. Do you think that's a big problem?
Well, I think it's so important in whatever we do and every single area of our life to be able to be ourselves. You have so many issues now with people feeling as though they're having to conform to a stereotype, and that actually doesn't help the individual or ultimately any organisation that they are working for.
Yeah, exactly. And so with your experience as an international headhunter and also a woman who's worked very successfully in male-dominated fields, how did you manage to stay authentic?
Well, I think first of all, just to reflect, obviously Fab After 50 is what I'm doing now, started as a hobby, but I've had nearly 30 years as an international headhunter. And at the time that I got into headhunting, and specifically in the niche markets that I worked in, it was very much male-dominated. And I know in the early years I was put under tremendous pressure to be more like a man. And with the best will in the world, I don't look like a man, I don't act like a man, I don't sound like a man. And I really had to sort of stand my guns and sort of say, well, I can't be a man. What I can do is be the best headhunter I can be, but I'm also always going to be a woman. So why try to hide that fact? Yeah. And
how did you find it helped you?
I think it did help me, actually, because I think what we tend to have as women, I think first of all, I have had a softer approach to my male colleagues. And I think being a woman, women were better geared towards building relationships with people, whether that was my clients or my candidates. I think we can create empathy perhaps more quickly than perhaps some of my male counterparts in the industry I was working in were able to do. I think also we were more prepared to listen. And I think being a woman, as most of my clients and candidates were men, I wasn't competing with them.
Yes.
So whereas I found with some of my male colleagues, I had male consultants at some point, working for me, they tended to compete with the people they were working with as opposed to actually providing a service to them. Well, my ego didn't really get in the way of that. So I think I was able to use being a woman to my advantage. And I think particularly in the early days when I was developing my client base, because a lot of the initial contact was made over the phone, interestingly, I think that the people I was phoning were mainly men, and inherently they felt they had to be polite to a woman. So I'd get far further in my initial conversation without being hung up on than my male colleagues that didn't really get much further than hello. I'm absolutely convinced that in the early years, being a woman was definitely for me an advantage.
So what do you think it means in corporate terms?
I think in corporate terms, I think it's doing your job, but also being able to shine as an individual. I think you can sort of show your personality, demonstrate your creativity. Even if you have quite a well-defined job description, if you can see a way that you think you can actually do your job better or add more value, don't be afraid to say so. Give input, be constructive. Show that you can actually be a team player and collaborate with other colleagues in a realistic way, and again, we use the word authentic way, rather than work in a silo.
Yes,
because typically we're not really designed to work as silos. We are sort of designed to sort of communicate and be sociable creatures.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so how do you think that women can remain authentic and still manage to climb the career ladder? Because that can put quite a lot of pressure on from peers, from bosses, etc. So how can they do that and still give value and bring in the results that are necessary to meet the corporate ideal?
Well, I think if you look at the bigger picture and being authentic, but also looking at what the corporate's bigger goals are, or what your department's bigger goals are, or your immediate boss's bigger goals are, and be the person who, in your own way, can help facilitate that success and be noticed for that. And I think, again, if you can sort of come up with new ideas, which perhaps are based on your own personal experience and your own thoughts on doing things, back them up with concrete examples as to why you think they would work, push yourself forward, but in a positive, constructive way. I mean, I saw a fabulous film, just a week or two ago, called Hidden Figures. If you want to see how somebody's authentic and actually make a difference, I would suggest anybody goes and watches that, because that's about 3 female mathematicians, coloured ladies in the 1960s who had incredible prejudice to overcome, but really were able to make a difference in the NASA space program by being good at what they did, by actually being focused in what they wanted to do, by being responsible and accountable for how they themselves got there, and by being themselves.
Oh, right. That sounds like it's an excellent example.
If they want to see how to do it, that's a good example of terrific ways of doing it.
Yeah, and that sounds that it's not restricting authenticity just to the corporate world. It sounds like that's definitely moving into other fields as well. Have you any other examples that you can give us?
Yes, I can actually. In fact, funny enough, it's also sort of space-related. I had the pleasure of meeting one of the NASA astronauts a while ago. Actually, he was a Challenger pilot, John McBride. And he actually took 2 women on his mission into space. One of those was Sally Ride, and the other one was Catherine D. Sullivan. In fact, Catherine D. Sullivan was the first woman to walk in space, and Sally Ride was the first American woman to go into space. Really? And both of those people were obviously very keen on science and had excellent credentials, but they also knew what they wanted to do. But they didn't let the fact they were women be a barrier. And in fact, John said, if you think about space, he said, in traditional employment, years ago, it was physical strength that really mattered. Where if you look at gravity was a great leveler. You didn't need gravity to be successful in space. It was what was between the ears that mattered.
Yeah.
Those people could be themselves without having to prove any sort of strong male characteristics or physical dominance. Yeah. And they could still be successful and achieve their goals. And in fact, in the conversation I had with John McBride, he was saying if you look at gravity in space, it's very similar really to like sort of the internet now. We don't need physical strength to actually be successful if we're using the internet as a tool and technology as tools to help us. So really, we have no barriers to being successful now in that sense.
Do you think this changes as women get older?
In terms of being authentic?
Yes.
I think that's a big one, because there's this whole thing about ageism in the workplace. But I think what we can do is use our age to our advantage, because we may not have youth on our side, but we still have enthusiasm. And certainly what we can do is demonstrate our experience in many different aspects of our lives and in the workplace, and also play on our strengths of actually communicating across the generations, dealing with all sorts of situations of crises in the workplace. We've lived through recessions. We've lived through the good times and the bad, and we can bring all that experience to play. And that again helps to build our authenticity.
Yes, personally, I always find that working with older people is a pleasure, because they don't try to pretend they're something they're not. They're very down to earth. They know what they want. They know what they still want to do, and they've got so much more confidence and adaptability that it just makes it so natural. It's wonderful, and so much experience. But anyway, that's me on my hobby horse about older women and older people, not just women, older people being excellent to work with.
Women Up Radio, designed to facilitate women's empowerment, improve your career, develop your talents, incorporate your passions, achieve fulfillment and success.
So, moving on from that, what about people investing in themselves? I know a lot of people are very interested in doing this, but practically they're just not sure how to go about it. Have you got any suggestions you can make?
Well, yes, I've got quite a few, really, and I think it comes in many different forms. There are courses you can take, but one good starting point is to pick out some successful people that you admire in the business world and even just read their biographies. Mm-hmm. See how they learned and how they were inspired and how they learned to do things. And then also look at where the gaps are in terms of both the role you're doing now and what you want to do next. And are those gaps that could be filled by collaborating with somebody, or are those gaps things that you should really look to actually address in your own skill set? Yeah. And if that's the case, there are lots of courses. You've got the online courses that you can take. So many online courses now. But also you can contact local colleges, local business schools, all different sorts of programs. And it's really finding the one that suits your style of learning best and fits in with your schedule.
Yes.
I would say with the experts, a lot of people who are online experts, I would definitely check them out. If somebody's offering a course online, make sure they're not an expert just in marketing courses, but are actually experts in the field that they're teaching the course on. Because I've seen many courses out there which are quite highly priced, where the expertise of the instructor or the tutor or the coach really isn't, I think, up to scratch in terms of what they're delivering in content.
Yeah, it's just been very well marketed so that it looks wonderful, but then it's not well backed up.
No, it's only substance. And look at their own profiles on things like LinkedIn. I mean, if they're talking about, I have this thing, as for instance, if they're saying they're experts in social media, look at their own social media accounts. How many followers do they have? If they're saying they're great at sort of helping you put your personal branding together and get that out on YouTube, check their own YouTube hits on their own channel. Don't just take their word for it, because that could certainly give you a picture.
Yes. And what type of courses do you think offer the most opportunity for women? Do you think there's anything specifically that can help them?
I'm not sure there's anything specific. I think anything that feels... Well, I think it depends what profession that you're in and what skills you need to keep you there and take you to that next level and maintain your marketability. I think really any course that you can take, we perhaps should also meet with or engage with other women in the same profession or in the field that you want to excel in, where you can learn from each other and support each other is good.
Yes.
But if it's a specific course, it really depends what you're doing.
Yeah, okay. And also, still talking about courses, I know many employees think that it's the employer that should be paying. Obviously, if you're an entrepreneur, that's a completely different case. But if somebody is employed, do you think they should expect the employer to pay, or do you think that there are other options or something that's more positive?
Well, I think perhaps you could perhaps suggest an annual appraisal when it's determined what you may need in discussion with doing your appraisal in terms of what you should be doing next in the next 12 months. That may be courses there and other opportunities to be funded. But if not, I think you have to take responsibility for yourself. Ultimately, during your career, you are brand you. And it's down to you to make sure that you have the skills, that you are marketable, and you do get that recognition for what you do. And if that means funding your own courses, that's what you need to do.
Yes.
Ultimately, it really is down to I believe down to personal accountability.
Yes, I agree. I think whatever we want to do, we need to take responsibility for ourselves for making it happen, because it's fulfilling our future.
In the early days in recruitment, it was in the early days of IT recruitment, I knew nothing about IT. I could see that was going to be the biggest growing segment where I was living at the time. And so I enrolled on a university course and just did IT for management modules. And at least then I could speak the language with the clients that I was working with. I didn't ever have to be a programmer. I would have been the worst programmer ever. But I could then understand how IT fitted into their